Okay, for those of you, I originally made a much longer video, and now I figured break it up for people who actually care about this conversion. So the problem with taking a W250 drive line and putting it here is going to be several. Something that's going to make it easier, it's leaf springs front and back, so don't have to do major modification there. The leaf spring size I think is the same front and back. I'm gonna have to do some measuring. It would be great if it was already lined up based on the same width, but very well could be off, in which case we're gonna have to move some perches. But let's go into the more problematic stuff. So all right, here we are underneath, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot of room between the radiator, because again, where the engine is, normally in a normal truck or anything, radiator would be way out front. Right now it's just a couple inches in front of the axle. So problem number one could be solved relatively, I think, easy, with a lift of sorts, but obviously going to be concerning somewhat. I would imagine it wouldn't be too hard to push it forward a couple of inches with some creative spacers or whatever, but obviously will have airflow affected. Sorry about the rat's nest, but this is the way these came, because you have all this wiring from your control panels, you have your braking, all that sort of stuff, and it's all got to go back. So problem two, or at least could be interesting, here's your steering box, and it goes forward and back and makes the wheel go forward and back, and then there's a linkage that goes behind this axle across, and that's how we get steering. Once we have this new axle on, I don't know what the setup is going to be. In an ideal world, we'll find a way to reuse that, because if we look right here, we got a lot of stuff in the way if you want to do some sort of crossover thing, crossover steering, but I don't think that's going to work in this case. Let me know if you're seeing some blatantly impossible or expensive fab work. Let me know. So steering, radiator location, axle location, that sort of thing, all sort of common stuff. Obviously, shock location should be, I think, pretty okay. We'll have to, likely get longer shocks. I'm guessing I'm going to do 2 to 4 inches of lift, something like that. The springs, leaf springs, I could probably get beefier ones if need be. We'll see. Expanding, getting wider perches back there, or shackles back there, wouldn't be a problem. But here, that could be problematic if you wanted to get a longer leaf spring. So that's the front end, and I don't think there's a whole lot of issues with that. Final front end issue is the brakes. So your master cylinders right here, the way the brakes on these Dodges work, you have this lever. This is your foot pedal, comes here, turns this guy, and then pushes your rod into your master cylinder. It doesn't even look like it's dead on, but whatever. Works great. You actually have to check the fluid levels through the floor. There's a inspection panel. The disc drum master cylinders are bigger, just the non-power ones. And so I've seen people do it. I think you end up having to cut this firewall piece to allow for the additional length, and it can become problematic with checking your fluids and stuff like that. Obviously, I guess you could fab a bigger panel. Maybe that's the way to go. Do something. The idea of getting a booster here, of size is not, not realistic. So we'll have to figure out something else. But basically, just go non-power disc, non-power drum. Maybe cut the wall, stuff like that, and then plumb it. But that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Just some cutting, that sort of thing. So, gonna pause and head towards the back and transmission. Okay, here we are with the transmission. As you can see, the previous owner made a custom support for this because again he had a 6 inline 6 in here, and then swapped it for the V8, and this was 70s, and him and his sons did work on cars and whatnot, and I think just used what they had, and so you've got some boxed steel here, cut kind of not so great, but it's worked for it's 2025, and it's done. This van's been all over the country, so it's worked, but obviously not ideal. The W250 will obviously come with a basic support. Where it's going to go to will depend exactly on where the transmission ends up with the transfer case. So we got a support here, a lighter one here. We'll have to see. Obviously, I have a custom exhaust already. 2-into-1 comes out by the wheel. Depending on the side, we're going to have some major rerouting and redoing. The other issue would be, you saw I got that pull-out step here. So if the transfer case is on the passenger side, I could run into issues where it's going to take up too much space and not clear this hinge or something like that. So it would be a shame to lose the step. I'm not going to know really till I get things mocked up. So that's, look at my notes. Steering, exhaust, brakes. Obviously I'm going to do 2 drive shafts. So the length of this will change. I mean, it'd be wonderful if somehow it ended up the truck one was the same length, but unlikely. We'll have to make a shifter, obviously, to put it into 4-wheel drive. So again, depending on which side, you're going to have to go linkage and go through the floor. So that's going to be fun. And then rig up I know the module for the lockup torque converter and the overdrive is on the right side. So, but again, it's, I should be able to run it wherever it needs to go. Other than that, and so then it's just, clearance out to the front. If we lift this a couple inches, that should help give some clearance. But depending on where the axle is going to go, or which side it's going to be on, is going to cause some amount of issues. So that's the main issues I see: steering, exhaust, rigging up the brakes, master cylinder, 2 drive shafts, figuring out a shifter, and the push button stuff. And then just making sure we're able to support the transmission and whatnot. So we shall see. It's going to be one of those situations where you buy it and you start figuring out as you go. You can take some measurements and stuff like that first, just to see if your perches are going to match up. But other than that, it's going to be fab work and some hours. So we shall see.